Today's visual novel is Muv-Luv Alternative. Muv-Luv Alternative is the finale of the Muv-Luv trilogy, which once again stars Shirogane Takeru. After being transported into a different dimension in Unlimited, he had engaged in training to become a TSF pilot to fight against the alien race known as the Beta. However, before he could get into any real action with them, him and his unit were informed that Alternative 5 was being activated due to the failure of Yuko with the Alternative 4 plan. This resulted in having a portion of humanity leave on migrant ships to search for another planet to inhabit to escape from the Beta invasion. It also involved essentially nuking portions of the Earth to clear out the Beta. This leaves the cast devastated because, of course, they would rather find a method to either drive off or fight against the Beta instead of fleeing. Which leads to the start of Alternative, where Takeru has seemingly been taken back to the very first day he arrived in the Unlimited world. However, not everything has been reverted, as Takeru has the knowledge of the events of the Unlimited timeline, well, some of them anyway, as well as the combat skills, and strangely enough, his physical body has morphed to that of his Unlimited self as well. Taking advantage of this, Takeru is determined to make sure Alternative 4 is a success, and Alternative 5 never happens. So finally, after all the buildup of the first two games, the plot must finally be underway, right? Well, no, because you see the thing with MLA is that it literally makes you redo the majority of Muv-Luv Unlimited before the plot can finally get rolling along. While it's certainly different, as Takeru is more mature and skilled, so he has no difficulty with things that troubled him in the past, it's also incredibly tedious to go through again, and it's baffling the author did not abridge this part more, as only a few instances need to really be shown. Not only that, but he essentially erased all the character development and bonds the cast had obtained together in Muv-Luv Unlimited for now incredibly cheapened and forced bonds that this game displays in comparison. And with this, let's get to the main issue of Muv-Luv Alternative right off the bat, and why I firmly argue that it's an utterly terrible game! The pacing of the series is quite possibly the worst I have experienced in any story ever. Yes, that includes the likes of Grisaya, White Album 2, Muramasa. And while all of those are of course very unforgivably slow, Muv-Luv asks for more than anyone should ever be asked of. Remember how I told people to skip Extra because it's a piece of crap Karage? Well, people firmly argued with me that it was necessary for the context of the plot to be appreciated. I would argue that anyone who has seen any harem ever could imply most of Muv-Luv Extra for themselves, as the story and characters are shallow and depthless and literally add nothing to the plot other than what MLA tries to force in all of the name of deconstruction. And regardless, did Muv-Luv Extra have to be so long? Maybe if it was like 2 or 3 hours, and then was used to be deconstructed, I could find some point of forgiveness for it. But for it to be around 20 hours of just characters faffing about mixed with cheap drama is asking for the patience of a saint. Not only that, but you have to sit through another 15 or so hours of Muv-Luv Unlimited, which is literally just a training arc that goes absolutely nowhere. Hell, you didn't even get to see Beta in that game. What a joke! And to top it all off, all the character development outside of Takeru gets reversed! Then the author makes the most baffling decision ever, to go through the exact same thing again. This game makes Moby Dick look like it's on rocket skates. Now just so you know, just because something is slow doesn't make it bad. In fact, sometimes the slow parts of the story can be the best. Take for example Grisaya, where it was far better when it didn't attempt to have a plot. Or better yet, Honey and Clover, where it's just fun to watch the characters interact. However, other than Yuko, the cast is just far too dull for it to really make the interaction between the characters tolerable. Not only that, but the character development in this game is pretty minimalistic for the majority of the cast, as only really Takeru and Yuko receive much of anything. Instead, the game makes another foolish mistake of introducing new characters before properly developing the old ones. A lot of people argue that the girls in Muv-Luv received their development in Muv-Luv Unlimited, and therefore now it's time an alternative to focus on different things. At best, they received what I would call an introduction, but hardly any noteworthy development. That very same trend continues with this game, even with the new characters that are introduced. It makes the entire experience just feel rushed despite the slowness. And honestly, the level of character development we get is just unacceptable for something as long as this series was. Now, there's several other issues to address, but of course, let's go over it in the spoiler section. Production-wise, this game also kind of baffles me. See, I've heard a lot of things about this game from people on how impressive this game is, and that it gives you an experience close to anime. Trust me, nothing is farther from the truth. Unless, of course, the anime we are talking about is Ninja Slayer from Animation, or Inferno Cop. Yeah, that's right. This game does something weird. See, there are actual mech fights in this game, as opposed to Unlimited, where nothing happened. And the game thought it was very compelling to watch static sprites move around while having the camera possibly zoom in and out. You know, you're supposed to just let the player use their imagination based on the drawings and sprites, because otherwise you make it obvious of the limitations that sprites really provide. I mean, it looks just like Ninja Slayer, and you know what Ninja Slayer is supposed to be? A joke. Does Muv-Luv Alternative want to be seen as a joke? Because that's what it is! It also doesn't help that most of the fights have no real depth or strategy to them and is usually just a slideshow of slash animations and various clunky sprite transitions with hardly any description to the fight. Now granted, the mechs look alright in terms of design despite being incredibly generic, but the detail is nice. They look better than the characters at the very least. Also, they added lip flaps to this game, which I believe later versions of Extra and Unlimited have as well, but let's be honest, does that really ever add anything? The music is fairly solid, but nothing terribly memorable. Still, I'll give it credit that it's far stronger than most visual novel soundtracks, and it's one of the few that provides some space opera tracks. But unfortunately, the game also provides the incredibly dull Muv-Luv Extra soundtrack, which is what you hear for the majority of the game. So in general, it's a pretty dull affair in providing much of an experience. Overall, like said before, the Muv-Luv series requires you to either love it for all it's worth or you to be stubborn as hell in order to ever hope to complete it, which is what happened with me. Regardless of any other complaints I might bring to it in the review, they are all minuscule in comparison to how slowly everything unfolds. Just for a final statement on this matter, the argument, "it gets better later," is not a very compelling one. People said the same thing about Final Fantasy XIII when it came out, and that did not fly with people at all. And sadly, even the beginning of Final Fantasy XIII is better than the beginning of Muv-Luv. Just because something gets better later does not mean it can start out dull and tedious. If you're going to have slow moments, make them quality slow moments. Heck, I'm reading through Spice and Wolf right now, and it is, of course, very slow. However, despite it being slow, it made sure to make the characters compelling and interesting enough to make you interested on where they could possibly go. In just 2 volumes, Lawrence and Holo have a better and developed and more natural relationship than anyone in Muv-Luv could possibly hope to get throughout its 80-hour duration. What I'm saying is, slowness and dullness are not the same thing, but if you combine them together, it becomes the most painful thing you could do in the entertainment medium. Now it's time for spoiler territory, so if you haven't played the game, then don't go here. And if you can't tell, I hate this game. I hate this game. Go ahead and dislike this video, I'm fine with that. I'm going to bash the fuck out of this game. I hate it, okay? I did not want to do this review. I tried to replay this game to give it a more in-depth review, to give it a more of an analysis than I already did, and this review is going to be long as hell. But guess what? The game was so boring, I played it for about 3 or 4 hours, and I just said to myself, how the fuck did I ever get through this the first time? This game sucks. Okay. Starting with the portion of the game that occurs before the coup arc, like I said in the general review, it's really tedious. Takaru is of course frustrated along with us because he's annoyed that he has to do it all over again with no way to skip it because he's in a hurry to make sure Alternative 4 comes to completion. Now granted, at least the game acknowledges that this is very frustrating to go through again, but that doesn't make the experience any less pleasant. Perhaps if Muv-Luv Extra never existed, I might have forgiven this part and actually felt the same as Takaru, but instead I just wanted to drop the game for being so lame. Thankfully, at least there are some differences. For example, the part where Tamase shoots down the satellite is avoided completely thanks to Takaru warning Yuko beforehand to take care of it. However, this comes with the cost of Tamase not getting the confidence she got from being able to shoot it down in Unlimited. Instead, the game gives her absolutely no character development whatsoever. Literally, you could have written her out of the game, because her only purpose from this point forward is to be ripped in half. But she's not the only one who suffers, as basically most of the girls who are experiencing conflicts such as the class rep and Kay arguing with each other is not properly dealt with either. See, this is a major problem because there is no consequence from them not getting the development you saw from Unlimited. If the writer actually cared about Tamase, he would have utilized her lack of confidence that she should have gained to cause some trouble later on. Perhaps this could have resulted in her getting someone killed or her not being able to perform properly on a mission. This could have had Takeru experience a lot of conflict from rushing things. I mean, yes, he does experience some conflict, but this definitely could have made things more interesting at the very least, as well as created more of a group bond that this game sorely lacks but tries to tell you it has anyway. Instead, because it treats the development they got in Unlimited as inconsequential, it makes it seem like their growth was utterly meaningless. And not only that, because Takeru has all this knowledge he isn't supposed to have, early on he is regarded as very suspicious by several members of the cast. This could have been utilized to, once again, enforce the fact that they don't have a great bond with each other like they did in Unlimited, and shown in the story that it affects them on missions. However, the story very quickly forgets about this after a while, and it plays no part in the story whatsoever, which makes you wonder why it was even written in the first place. It just makes you wonder, why are you even paying attention to the plot at times when the game is so quick to disregard things that could easily have led to an interesting conflict? Instead, the cast just kinda regards him as this awesome teammate after a while, and the only one who lectures him at times is Maya, because Maya is the only character out of the 5 heroines the author cares about. Unfortunately, Maya gets little to no development in this game outside of falling in love with Takeru and bits of resolve. See, development involves a character's actions actually changing over the course of a story, which is what happens with Takeru and Yuko. For example, Takeru runs away into his own world later in the story, while Yuko performs inhumane actions such as triggering the beta to invade the base. However, with Maya, there is only one action she takes to hilarious degrees, and that is being Mrs. Self-Sacrifice. No matter the circumstances, you can count that is pretty much what she's going to do in some way all the way until she dies. It makes her boring and dull. See, in Unlimited, at the end she says that in falling in love with Takeru, it made her weak. And since she falls in love with Takeru in this game again, I was expecting that to come into fruition, so much as we weren't really shown much of how it made her weak like she told us in Unlimited. Instead, she just continues the same as usual, with maybe making some slight remarks that hints that she's in love with him, but Takeru doesn't get it because he's a dumbass. In fact, he's such a dumbass that even when he remembers being in a relationship with her in another world line, I'll just call them that for easy reference, he still can't figure out that she's in love with him. Even when she's willing to let him rape her, he still can't figure it out. And holy shit, I'll talk about that scene later because it's one of the dumbest scenes in the game. Takeru in general does certainly get development in this game, even if a lot of it is negative and some of it is kind of circular. He becomes frustrated, he makes some careless decisions based on his rushed attitude, he becomes a bit of a hypocrite at times. Remember that volcano incident in the original game? Yeah, Takeru helped him out originally because he wanted to help Maya with protecting their rights as human beings. In this game, he doesn't even want to waste time with them and is supportive of gassing the village just to get it over with quickly. Maya of course lectures him over this, and while he does reach a degree of understanding, he still continues his over-heroic mindset in the following coup chapter. Now this is one of the things the game does well, mind you, because it makes Takeru flawed as a person. It's just a shame that he's still really badly written, which I'll discuss in more detail later. But the good thing is that Takeru, despite thinking he's helping the world with this, he's actually being a massive hypocrite and no different than the Alternative 5 supporters and the beta by disregarding other people's perspectives on the matter and forcing them to just go along with what he thinks is best for humanity. Which is also how Yuko develops through the game as well, and also what makes her the most interesting character in the game. Because as soon as she somehow gets the memory of her past failures, she also, like Takeru, begins to rush herself and take some drastic actions in order to complete Alternative 4. Unfortunately for Yuko, she's also involved in some of the most insufferable scenes in the game because she is essentially the massive info dump character. Now, giving context and explanation on how the plot works is important, I agree. But just going on long tangents of information dumped on the audience is how you create a superbly boring story. The second you info dump for any more than 5 minutes, let's say, you're no longer telling a story, and instead you're just giving a lecture. Now, of course, some people may be interested in your lecture, but for those who aren't, they are going to be bored to tears. There's literally one section in this game that has a briefing mission discussing the various beta types, and it takes around 40 minutes to an hour if you listen to the audio. Almost like it was a real briefing mission. Now, there's giving context, and then there's asking your audience to just fall asleep. Think when you play a video game, would you ever want a tutorial to go on for an hour before you got a chance to play again? Probably not, because you would be bored to tears and just give up on the game unless you were just really, really stubborn. Even worse is that there's literally no real strategy involved in the fights against the various beta types, because all that seems to matter is whether they have lasers or not and whether they are big or small. This is because, like I said earlier, the fights rely on cheap and clunky animation rather than any real strategy. Now, I'm not asking for this game to be like Muramasa, where it describes every friggin' action in as much detail as possible, so every fight takes like an hour. Jesus fucking Christ, Muramasa, what a terrible game. But at the very least, couldn't they have a touch more depth to them? Then again, this game does try to give its sci-fi a good bit of depth, thanks to how many lectures you're going to get from Yuko about how the different dimensions work. Not that you can take the science in this game seriously at all, because the way that Yuko makes the most advanced TSF system that really makes a huge difference against fighting against the beta is by getting advice from Takeru about how video games work. Not only that, but the whole reason the alternative route even came about was that she couldn't finish her theory in order to complete the 0-0 unit. However, in the extra world, she conveniently is able to come up with the theory necessary for it. How come Extra Yuko was able to come up with the exact theory she needed? Because she played a video game and got inspired by it. So simply because Alternative Yuko didn't have access to video games, she wasn't able to come up with this amazing theory. I shouldn't have to comment on how dumb and forced this all is. It's amazing how the writer tries to clunkily insert reasons for the extra world to be necessary for the plot of the trilogy. Oh, and by the way, while she is of course not able to come up with a method of completing the 0-0 unit, she is able to come up with a device that's able to send Takeru back into the extra universe. Because that's just so much easier. See, if you're going to make Yuko brokenly smart, at least make her consistently brokenly smart instead of just not smart enough to create a way to extend the plot already longer than it ever needed to be. But I guess the main message I should take about the sci-fi explanations in the game is both power to the players, and that Yuko can make whatever she wants as long as she just has that little bit of inspiration. So pardon me if I don't think the game gave me ever much of a reason to take it seriously. So no, I'm not going to analyze the sci-fi. So finally, it happens. The team is put on a mission. They're actually going to have to use their mech pilot skills. And upon reading this, I was finally like, oh my god, we are going to get to see some beta. But then, the game goes, no, we have to engage in a political conflict now that has nothing to do with fighting the beta. And it was at this point that I thought the game was literally just afraid to show them to me. I mean, come on, they have been built up for at least 40 hours at this point. And still, we got nothing? How did they possibly expect me to care about this arc that much when literally the game has been telling me to get invested in some other conflict all the while? Granted, I guess they just expected, since it wasn't slice-of-life/training nonsense anymore, the readers would just be happy with it. And I guess it wouldn't be so bad as long as it wasn't very time-consuming and the politics were well-developed. And of course, both of those things could not be farther from the truth, as this arc literally takes forever! There is just so much talking about ideals and how it's not just about the beta, to try and convince the reader that they should broaden their perspectives on the matter. This game's not just about the beta, this is about this stuff too. Basically, it's a coup arc that occurred because the people in the volcano village got gassed, and this one group of people is very unhappy with how the Japanese are being treated. This, of course, gives Takeru ample time to whine about all this is a big waste of time and mankind should be focused on fighting the beta rather than each other. However, the whole point of this chapter is to show how even with a common enemy, mankind remains divided due to them not sharing the same methods and goals. Also, it's to prove that Takeru doesn't have as much resolve as he thinks he does, because he's not willing to kill fellow human beings because he thinks he can get away with just fighting the beta. which does carry over into the next chapter and the rest of the game, and normally I would compliment the game on this for giving him proper build-up for his later actions. But I'll discuss later why he just can't. Anyway, this chapter is like twice as long as it needs to be, and you basically will just be watching the characters sitting around in the woods and talking, and talking, and talking, and talking for hours on end. It's utterly horrible. The political conflict really only plays much of a role in this chapter, as well as the rest of the game focuses more on just fighting against the beta and Takeru's various dramas he'll experience. Also, even the majority of the characters that are introduced are either dead or play no real role in the rest of the game outside affecting things behind the scenes. It's a far cry from how Rose Guns Days handles things, where its political conflict develops and plays an integral part throughout the whole story, where what we're given here is just a shallow version of how StarCraft does things. Oh yeah, and Maya self-sacrifices herself for her sister. Yay! Another point for her. But honestly, I don't see the point of covering Yuhi, as really her only purpose is to inform Takeru about his lack of resolve. So after that incredibly tedious chapter, Takeru and gang are to engage in a field test for the new TSF system that Takeru developed with the video games, because power to the player. It goes well for a while and other units are thrilled with how the new system performs. And because things are finally fairly positive right now, you know things would go to shit immediately afterwards because the author is so amazing at foreshadowing. So finally, the beta attack! Yes, justice! Oh my god, it took like 50 hours since the start of Unlimited, and they are finally here! I was excited. I was thrilled. I was just like, thank you. I'm so glad to see a Zerg rush. And for a while, the beta didn't disappoint, as they quickly messed everything up and killed quite a few people. Of course, Takeru's unit is ordered to retreat because all they have is paintball rounds. Takeru does this at first, but then he gets the bright idea that it's okay to go and paintball the beta to death, because that's really effective. Okay, look, I get that Takeru has been frustrated for a while now, and after the last chapter, he wants to prove his resolve badly. The game most certainly has adequately justified Takeru taking reckless action here. However, what is not justified at all is him just being a complete and utter dumbass. What he does here is the equivalent of taking on an angry mob with his hands tied behind his back. Now, unless Takeru is literally going insane at this point, no amount of prior development is going to justify him acting this stupid. Had Takeru somehow acquired live ammo, which is what he was going to do, but didn't, try to rush out and act like a hero alone in order to prove his resolve, and yet still get screwed over by the beta because he underestimated them and has never dealt with them before, then that would have been fine. Instead, we have to make him act like a dumbass for a period of time, and then have Maya ask them to interject some drug into him where he freezes up and collapses on the field, and the beta swarm him and make him piss his pants in fear. Yeah, look at how threatening those beta are, taking out our handicapped main character. I believe what the author wanted to achieve was that he was just freaked out all of a sudden, and went crazy because he couldn't handle the immediate threat of the beta. But even still, it simply didn't work, and relies on him being a total idiot. Anyway, of course he doesn't die because he's Takeru and he has a lot of plot armor, and he mopes about afterwards for not being the hero he thought he was. Marimo comforts him by saying she also acted overconfident against the beta in the past, and pissed her pants as well. Then she gets her head bitten off, right after telling us a story about underestimating the beta. Is this supposed to be a joke? By the way, this scene just shows what a terrible writer the author is. Does he realize what kind of character he's written alternative Marimo to be? She's supposed to be the character who lectures the other characters about considering possibilities on what occur on the battlefield, and not to be careless. Remember in the final training exam, if you choose to use the boat to speed around the island? She almost fails you for being so reckless, and that if enemies were around, Takeru and gang could have possibly been killed. That is why, in this exact scene, she does not consider the circumstances and the possibility of the beta still being around, even though popping out of nowhere is kind of their thing, and drops her guard completely. What would she have to say to herself if Takeru was the one who got killed? Remember what I said earlier about Takeru acting reckless? Well, at least that was somewhat justified because he had the build-up for it. However, with Marimo, there is no reason for her to act this out of character and stupid. Had she died while at the very least being on guard around Takeru and telling him, I know you just went through a lot, but we need to wait until we're back at base before we drop our guards, then that might have been at least more okay. But instead, no. He thinks this is just such a great surprise, he needs to not even hint at it. Even worse, this beta type isn't even new or anything like that. It's been around for 5 years at least. Had it at least been some undiscovered beta that killed her, it would have been kind of a cop-out as well, but much more tolerable. And what is the beta that killed her common trait? And you're telling me that Marimo, the careful and considerate character, didn't even possibly think this beta type could be around. Yes, I know, they issued an announcement that the beta were cleared out. But let me ask you this. Had the game told you about the beta types that existed before this event had occurred, and that one was small and stealthy in comparison to the rest, what would you have thought while reading this scene? I know, I would be jumping up and down because of how stupid the characters would be for just asking to get killed by one of those guys. But because the game doesn't inform you about this beta until after the scene is over and done with, it just asks you to buy it. Neither the lore nor the characterization of Marimo can possibly justify what occurred here. I make a big deal out of it because this scene is actually important for Takeru's character development and is treated like a huge thing for the rest of the plot. Oh, I know another way to possibly make this believable. How about have one of the other characters who are inexperienced be the one to comfort Takeru and get chomped on instead? That way at least it would kinda make sense. Though it doesn't make sense why they weren't informed about these beta types well beforehand. How does everyone in the world not know about these beta types? Shouldn't there be protocol against the various beta types? Oh well. Last bit of tangent about this scene, but why is it so gory? Nothing in the game was even remotely bloody until this point, and now all of a sudden we're in the Battle Royale manga? You can't just bring gore 50 hours into your story. That's incredibly tone-deaf and unfair to audience members who aren't comfortable with gore. If you want blood, that's fine, but let your audience be aware of it near the beginning of a story, so they at least know what they're in for. Don't just slap it in there for cheap shock value. Okay, finally moving on. Takeru is a total mess, but has been interjected with a lot of drugs to calm him down. So for a brief time, he's incredibly depressed, but not doing anything terribly eventful. Then he exceeds my expectations as a main character with the next scene, which truly shows the writing's writing prowess. So Maya has a little chat with Takeru about resolve once again. Hint, 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 it might be like one of the main themes of the game or something. She explains to Takeru that he can't be acting like a pity party because he has responsibilities from choosing to defend the Earth, and he can't let something like this get him down. Takeru of course whines that he never wanted to come here and he never had a choice in the first place. All of this is fine, really. Something tragic happened to him, so he is, of course, not dealing with it well at first. However, after a remark from Maya saying she pities Marimo because her death would be wasted if Takeru continued to act like this, then Takeru proceeds to shove her down on his bed and starts taking her clothes off in order to rape her. Granted, he doesn't go through with it, but holy shit, dude! Not only that, but instead of resisting, Maya essentially says, "If it makes you feel better, you can have your way with me." I'm gonna slap myself in the face. Ow, ow. That did not just get written down. God dang it. Yes, Maya, because you know what would really make someone feel better? It's the knowledge that they had raped somebody. Why is Maya so goddamn stupid? I don't even mind that we have a near rape scene, because rape can be used appropriately in a story when necessary. Check Swan Song out. But here, it's just melodrama, and it makes Maya look like the biggest damn idiot on the planet. So after that absolutely amazing scene, Takeru just decides he's going to give up on the world and run away to the extra world, which, to be honest, this needed a lot more time spent on it before Takeru just makes this decision. Yes, I know he went through a traumatic event, but it feels like far too abrupt of a choice for him to make. If they had instead had the PTSD and depression he was suffering fester a bit more, and say if we had another beta battle that Takeru engaged in but he was useless in, then that would have really drove home him feeling the urge to run away. But it's at this point the game realizes one thing: there's only 3 chapters left after this one, so they need to rush the rest of the plot, and it's completely obvious. So Takeru returns to the extra world, showing that he didn't have the resolve that he thought he had and is a massive coward, which once again, totally fine. He can develop from that. He meets Marimo again and cries his eye out upon seeing her in a fairly decent emotional scene. But while trying to adjust, his classmates notice there's something really off about him, and they quickly piss him off because they think he's acting strange, but Takeru just regards them as ignorant people who know nothing. Sumika, of course, comforts him for a bit, and they very quickly reciprocate each other's feelings. Which I didn't mind personally, as you can tell Takeru just wants comfort at this point. One of the biggest issues with this game is that it has to convince you that Takeru is in love with Sumika in the most forced manner ever. Granted, this is also part of the plot, as the Sumika brain from the alternative verse is forcing him to loop until Takeru does so, but we'll get to that whole business later. The thing that makes things quite odd is the fact that Takeru convinces himself that he is in love with Sumika because he remembers being in a relationship with her and sleeping with her in the extra world all of a sudden, at some point in the plot. I don't know when it happened. However, later on, he also remembers being in a relationship with almost every other girl in the plot as well. Yet, he essentially reasons out he's in love with Sumika because he remembered her first. It's very flimsy reasoning and not very convincing. It makes things even worse with how little Sumika is actually in the plot. I mean, she's in this chapter for a little bit and was in it a bit earlier, but overall, she's not a huge player in this game, or this trilogy. You know who is in this game a decent amount though? Kasumi. I hadn't mentioned her, but she's essentially the girl the game wanted you to think was Sumika, possibly because she obviously carried some of her memories and her name is an anagram for Sumika. This is because she was stealing Sumika's brain's memories in order to lessen the loneliness that she felt for not having any good memories of her own. Takeru figures out early enough that this is the case and tells Kasumi that he'll help her create these memories with her. It's a simple but fairly cute relationship, and at the very least they interact a reasonable amount throughout the game. And one of the dumbest choices this game makes, of many, is not making Kasumi the actual Sumika of the world. Because the actual Sumika was the brain, who in turn dies in order to create the 00 unit, who Takeru just says is Sumika all the same later on because, you know, shonen logic. Haven't gotten there, I know, but just gonna say that. So instead of making the character who the audience might have been okay supporting because she actually had some screen time, the author decides it's a great idea to make Takeru's love interest someone who is not in the game at all, if we are talking about the original Sumika, that is. And then if we are talking about the 00 unit, then it's someone who is not even introduced until Chapter 8 of 10. By the way, she's barely in Chapter 10 as well. Now, asking your audience to even possibly support this incredibly forced and rushed relationship is literally impossible, especially compared to Maya, who is also around for the entire game series. Once again, I know the plot is trying to do this, but it's like, they didn't even try to create the illusion that it was remotely believable at all. Anyway, enough tangenting about that. So Takeru is in his original world, and you know what I thought this would be? I thought this would be a great way to show how he had trouble adjusting back to the original world, and how he would slowly start to feel guilty for leaving the alternative world like a coward, and that would compel him to go back, maybe gain some resolve. Then maybe, just maybe, I could have said the extra was worth reading for the juxtaposition. Now, of course, they did show some of that, but it certainly wasn't enough, because instead the reason he has to go back is basically because the plot says so. Because you see him being there apparently screwed up the world and caused all this calamity to happen, like Marimo getting killed again, and Sumika slowly forgetting her memories and getting hurt. So now he has to go back to the alternative world and stop whatever is making him a calamity conductor in order to fix the extra world. And yes, that becomes his goal for the rest of the visual novel. You know, if your main character is just forced to keep doing things because the plot tells him to, it doesn't make him very compelling.
Generally, a plot is much more interesting when it's based on character choice, rather than you have to do this, otherwise too bad, you have to do this.
So yeah, now Takeru is back and they introduce more underdeveloped characters from the other terrible age visual novels.
Although I will say that their new captain Isumi is one of the better characters in the game.
And her death scene in this chapter is probably the best scene in the whole game if you ask me. It's just too bad that it's completely obvious because after the stupid chomp scene, they have to make every character death flag as obvious can be. But hey, at least we get a battle against the beta in this chapter. A painfully long battle, which I'm not even going to attempt to cover because of how goddamn long it is. Basically, what you need to know is that Takeru is a badass now apparently because he was really good at video games. Yeah, I know. So he basically DBZs it up in this chapter. They still end up failing their mission because the 00 unit froze up during the mission and they end up having to blow up the machine that she's riding.
So yeah, Asumi basically has to give her life for this.
Which is a shame because she really needed to stick around longer. But I'll acknowledge the scene was effective, like said before. So now the new leader is the blue-haired girl from Kimi ga Nozomu En, who dies in pretty much the exact same way in the next chapter. See, author, if you keep killing characters in dramatic ways in a short period of time, it's not going to be very effective. You know what's effective? Killing possibly a few characters. Let's say 2 or 3 important characters that had good amount of screen time and characterization. If this game had chosen to kill just Isami, one of the Valkyries, and let's say Maya, and possibly Tamase, it would be a hell of a lot more effective than just killing all of them. Well, I guess Akane survives. because then you just get predictable. It's kind of like how you can't have 5 scenes back to back where the author expects you to cry. Eventually, you'll probably just run out of tears, assuming you did cry in the first place, and look at the rest of them stone-faced. Now, before we discuss the next little mission, just kidding, we're not really going to discuss the next mission very much. Let's go ahead and discuss the handling of the 00 unit character. See, even though she is completed, her personality isn't really there because of the traumatic event she experienced with the beta, which is... Her memories seem to be in a bit of a blur as well, so now she has to hang around Kasumi and Takeru in order to help get them back. I already discussed how introducing her character this late in the game is not going to provide us with adequate development and characterization on her part, especially when you just start her in this semi-blank state. There's not going to be any time for that. So instead, the author basically makes it so her memories just kind of flood back, and she acts very attached to Takeru, which gets Maya jealous. But because Maya only knows how to self-sacrifice herself, she doesn't even remotely fight for him and instead helps them out. So yeah, it's really, really rushed. But then it comes the time when the 00 unit's problem has to be handled. She wants Takeru off the Valkyrie team so that he doesn't have to fight anymore. And of course, Takeru bickers this over with her, but she won't tell him the reason why she's doing this. After getting some advice from underdog Maya again, Takeru finally confronts her. Cornered, Sumika has no choice but to reveal what she's been hiding. And then it happens. We are treated to a tentacle rape scene, because apparently the beta do that now. Yeah. Yes, I know we saw the brains at the beginning of the game, so we should have known they were screwing around with humans, but oh my fucking god. See, instead of making the tragic event just the fact that Takeru was eaten in front of her and that her body was taken apart by the beta, no, that just wasn't enough for the author. He needed the tentacle rape. Now, believe it or not, there are people that defend this scene. They defend the tentacle rape scene of all the scenes to defend. They defend the tentacle rape scene. Okay, guys. No. Just no. See, they think it's a deconstruction of Dark Eroge, and let me tell you, you have never played a Dark Eroge if you think that. See, normally, when a person plays a Dark Eroge, this is what they think, by the way, they think of this kind of thing as erotic. But out of that context, you would think this as wrong and disturbing. So essentially, they think this is like the white phosphorus scene in Spec Ops: The Line. Okay, you guys realize for deconstruction to actually work, it has to be believable, because this scene fails at that, royally. You see, Sumika gives this vision to Takeru, and she's essentially has to relive the memory of the tentacle rape. That's important, she relives the memory of the tentacle rape. They molest her, enlarge her breasts and her clitoris to extreme proportions, and she starts feeling good despite all this. She repeats over and over again what kind of terrible person she is because, you know, reverse psychology. Fucking writer. But then Takeru gives her talk no jutsu about how it doesn't matter, and regardless of what form Sumika is in, he will always choose her and be in love with her. Despite, you know, at the end of the game, him not being with her. But I'll get to that later. And what do they do after that? They have sex. You know, in Game of Thrones, this is not a spoiler, by the way, if you haven't read Game of Thrones, it's just a small thing a character says. There's a prostitute talking to another character. The prostitute tells this character that you should know something is amiss with a woman if she tries to have sex with you after claiming to have just been raped. Now, technically, Sumika wasn't raped just now, but she did indeed relive the entire memory of it. And technically, I guess if we want to get real technical, this isn't really Sumika because it's the 00 unit, but the game basically acts like it is, so we're just gonna act like it is as well. But in no way, shape, or form would it ever be believable that she would be in the mood for sex right after doing such a thing. This is why the deconstruction fails, because you can't just half-ass something like rape when you put it into a story. Now, I'm not asking for a pity brigade on Sumika, but this is a very ignorant approach to rape. No matter how much she's in love with Takeru, you have to figure a couple things. A, she was a virgin in this universe. B, she probably got the worst kind of rape a person could ever experience. And C, her lover was eaten in front of her beforehand. I'm sorry, but there is no way that she's going to be comfortable with sex anytime soon. this is truly where the writer shows how much of a joke he is. Now, I'm not saying they didn't have to not have sex at some point, but it would need time and comfort for it to be believable. I know they're supposed to have sex for the plot to free Takaru, but that doesn't come across. You know what happens in that sex scene? It talks about how hot and bothered she is, and how she needs air conditioning and a fan to cool her off. It's some of the most laughable writing is in that scene. And that scene is an embarrassment to mankind. But let's just say, a quick pep talk is not going to magically cure it. She isn't just going to be sorta distressed over it either, which does play a role in the last mission. It's going to be a big fucking deal. I've known people who have been raped, and they've been, they took it pretty well. But no, someone is not going to have sex after talking about it. They are not going to be in the mood for it. This is not romantic. This is not them licking each other's wounds. This is the author being an ignorant fuck. And they could have gotten the rest of the cast to be supportive of her, possibly making good use of them, because at this point most of them are just kind of there. But no, because we have to rush things, we get this absolutely tasteless thing that quite honestly the writer should have been ashamed of himself for putting in. And the sad thing is, he probably just put it in there to get people to pity Sumika so they would be more okay with the fact that Takaru chose her over Maya. Go fuck yourself, writer. Now, other than that horrible scene that's a runner-up for the most poorly written sequence of events in visual novel history, we also have in this chapter the invasion of the beta on the base that they are staying at. It's pretty intense, actually, but damn, did it need some proper animation to make it actually good. Sorry, going to skim this one over as well, but basically lots of people die, and Mitsuki has to blow herself up at the end. Was that her name? I kind of forgot. Blue-haired girl. And apparently the reactor she blows up is Sumika's charge station. So this seals her fate. And then now they have no choice but to go ahead and invade the original hive because they need to make use of the 00 unit's abilities before she dies. Which Takaru doesn't know about, by the way. Well, he knows about the abilities, but she doesn't know that she's about to die. That's right, 2 battles with the beta. We were already on the climactic battle of the game. Did I mention that the game was rushed? And while nothing can surpass how bad that tentacle rape scene was in terms of just clear shittiness, Chapter 10 is by far the most consistently awful part of the whole experience, which is of course clearly inspired by the animated masterpiece of Sailor Moon. You might ask, what do I mean? Well, in the end of the first season of Sailor Moon, while tackling the final dungeon, all of the Sailor Scouts are picked off, one by one. But tell the main character to go on ahead of them. Then at the end, the final villain is attacked by the main character's love interest, but he fails to finish the final boss off. Then Usagi kills her with a giant laser beam, and then afterwards, she and her friend are shown living in a normal life again, with all of their memories erased. It almost sounds familiar, doesn't it? And so this is it. Takaru can show off all his true abilities as a pilot and pay off all the training that we had to watch him go through. He is commanded to pilot the mech that definitely makes best use of his abilities. A big, slow, hulking behemoth where all Takaru does is sit on his ass and pull a button for the giant laser beam at the end. Yes, pardon me if I sound upset by this, but oh my fucking god. Author, are you a dumbass? He made us sit through like 30 hours of training. Takaru is an agile pilot. Why the fuck would you put him in a machine like this? It's almost like there might be a better pilot for the job, like Tamase. But no, the author very forcibly wants Takaru to appear human and flawed in this chapter. So he does everything in his power to make him appear as pathetic as possible. He doesn't do anything badass, the characters have to lie to him because he can't handle the truth, and he acts like a goddamn buffoon when forced to deal with Maya at the end. Now, had Takaru used the best of his abilities to try and save his friends and still failed, like say Guts failed in Berserk during the eclipse, then his struggle at the end might have been believable. But instead, no, he sits on his ass doing nothing as the characters are picked off one by one. And look, the characters are treating him like a baby. Like a baby. You know, they're not being nice to him, they're treating him like a baby. Kind of like Riza Hawkeye told Roy Mustang in Full Metal Alchemist, hiding the truth from the Elric brothers isn't kindness, it's cruelty. That's exactly what they're doing here with him, and they're treating him like a goddamn child. Then at the end, when Maya gets caught by the pineapple beta, he just sits there contemplating killing the thing and her. because the game really, really needs to dig into the theme of resolve. Yes, at the very last minute of the game, let's get back to that issue that Takeru hasn't overcome yet, and to get blood on his hands. Jesus Christ, game. Even worse, he shows what a true and utter dumbass he is by not realizing Maya was in love with him until now. Hello, she was willing to let you rape her. So after promising Maya that he would never forget her, he finally does the deed and saves the world for, 20 years, then proceeds to forget about Maya at the end. What a hero. Then Takeru finds out that Sumika dies as well because now MLA is turning into torture porn. Then Kasumi decides it's time to explain the plot. The very convoluted plot. We learn that somehow Sumika from this world was able to drag out a combination of Takeru's from the Extraverse after she got G-bombed in the hive. Apparently this opened up a rift. Science. This combination of Takeru's formed into one Takeru, and he continued to loop in the unlimited timeline because he failed to meet up with Sumika again. Which is weird, because if this Takeru is supposed to be the same as all the loops, why is it only in this timeline that he has the physical build he had? It's probably explained somewhere, I'm not gonna really judge it, I don't really care either. However, once he met Sumika, and seriously, try not to laugh now, and had sex with her, then he was able to stop being a calamity conductor. Now all the effects will be undone, and all the Extraverse Takerus will return to where they belong. See, this is where things get very confusing as to whether or not this Takeru, at the end of the day, just plain disappears, or if Sumika, when creating the new world at the end, just erases his memories in the process and somehow kept this Takeru as well despite him being a combination of Takerus, so he shouldn't theoretically be able to exist. But considering it seems that Sumika's powers cannot be explained anyway at all, considering she's able to create Kasumi in the Extraverse, who's somehow the same person as the Kasumi from the alternative world line, I guess, but it doesn't confirm this. I'm just going to assume Sumika can just do that. You see, this is why you can't take the sci-fi in this game seriously, because if you want sci-fi to be taken seriously, you have to introduce concepts, right? And then give us the rules of those concepts. And then you can utilize those concepts throughout the plot. You can't just break the rules all of a sudden. But in here, Sumika doesn't seem to have any real rules or any predefined rules, so it seems like she literally can do whatever. Apparently. It's never explained in the game either way because, the author thinks leaving the ending vague at this point is good writing. Regardless, it doesn't take away from one thing. The ending is a giant joke and is one of the worst endings ever conceived. Even worse than My Hime's ending, because hell, as disappointing as it was, it didn't come after 80 hours of build-up. There are many reasons this ending is just plain terrible, mainly because it literally destroys all the themes and messages the game was trying to convey. After all, what's the main message of this game supposed to be according to the people? Well, people seem to think it's appreciate what you have, because the alternative could be worse. Which is already kind of a dumb message if you ask me, because it can only be applied to a limited amount of situations, and I totally disagree with it because, in my mind, the alternative could be a lot better too. Just saying. But essentially, in terms of this game, it wants you to appreciate, apparently, the extra world. Oh god, author, you are pathetic. And the peaceful, boring life led there, because the alternative is the characters suffering in this alternative world full of war and death. In which case, if that's the message the author wants to convey, then okay, fair enough. But he failed to do that, considering the fact that Takeru didn't get to prove that he was going to appreciate his old world of his own free will. See, he was forced to go back against his will because he wanted to stay. But of course, Kasumi convinces him he has no choice, and that he needs to go back and make Sumika feel at ease. Which, okay, fair enough, because he reluctantly accepts. However, what also happens is Sumika erases all of his memories. Because of this, the main character isn't actually coming to terms with appreciating his peaceful world, rather it's being forced on him to appreciate it. Which is the same argument I use for people who give one specific defense about the ending. See, quite a few people say that Takeru needs to have his memories erased because otherwise he would be miserable. He has PTSD and stuff. However, here's the clincher. It's pointless unless Takeru makes that choice for himself. See, if you're one of those people who says he needs to have his memories forcibly erased, because that's what happens, and saying it's for his own good. Let me ask you, what does that sound similar to in this game? You're no different than what this game preached as being evil, which is of course the very notion of forcing people to do things against their will because it's for their own good. Do you remember the Mount Tengen incident where all the folks were gassed against their will? Yeah, Maya had a large argument with him about that, because it was evil. Not only that, but when Yuko essentially killed the alternative Sumika in order to create the 00 unit, she gave a gun to Takaru so that she could be punished. And of course, the very thing that Takaru fights against for a good portion of the game is Alternative 5, which very much has this ideology too. So as you can see, it doesn't work unless Takaru decides for himself to have his memories erased. Now, there are some people who say Sumika did this because Takaru was forced to keep looping and come into this timeline in the first place due to her possessiveness. Once again, this doesn't work. If Sumika decided to do this to make Takaru happy and free, then she didn't listen to a damn thing Takaru told her. They already had a conversation about how Sumika doesn't get to decide how he feels about things. Plus, Takaru also told her that if he wasn't by her side, then he would no longer be himself. Really, it would make her no different than Sagiri, who wants to do the right thing, but the way she went about it was wrong. So if anything, it would show her to be, once again, a selfish bitch who doesn't care about what Takaru wants. Because let me ask you, if Takaru was given a choice to keep his memories or to let him throw them away, which would he pick? If you played this game, you would know that he wouldn't throw them away. He stressed in the last couple of scenes how important his memories were and how he would never forget anybody. So regardless of the pain of remembering, he's gained the resolve to handle that because he wasn't going to run away anymore. However, the ending, oddly enough, ignores all these things and just erases them anyway. Which made me question, what in the goddamn hell was the author doing? I mean, he clearly put all these memory things towards the end of the game, especially with the Maya death scene. Yet, he still erases his memories. I have no idea what he had hoped to accomplish with that. Is he trying to say the ending is evil? Because it's a bubbly, happy ending, but it's against his free will to experience this? Or did he just forget about the messages and the themes of the game? Honestly, I don't know, but all I know is it's a goddamn mess. Now, for anyone who thinks this isn't actually Takaru, and is just a fragment of the split-up parts, that also kills the message of the game, by the way, because apparently, one of the messages was to appreciate a peaceful world, remember? But how is he supposed to do that if he's dead? Plus, why would Kasumi and Sumika push him to go back? So, that doesn't make any sense. So regardless if that's true, it doesn't make the ending any better. My guess is he just wanted to add some bittersweet elements to the stupidly happy tone of the ending, but he didn't realize what he was doing to the story by doing so. If the author really wanted to convey his themes and messages, he would have to show the Takaru that developed in this game that we saw develop to actually be able to find some peace in the other world regardless of the hardships he faced. But instead, because he clearly has shown by now he has no clue what writing is, he decides to shove this bubbly nonsense and call it a day. It's just so goddamn pathetic. If anything, this ending does show one thing, because what matters is what a story actually shows to you, not what it tries to tell you it's showing. And it very clearly shows that values like resolve, love, and whatnot are meaningless compared to blissful ignorance. Because one of the other important things that needed to happen in this game that Takaru gained was resolve. He needed resolve. The whole thing about the game getting blood on his hands, being able to gain responsibility. Nope, you're better off as an ignorant fuck. That's what this game is saying. And you know what? You do not prove your message by just forcing our character into a situation against his will. You don't prove anything. You just show that you're a shallow bastard. Holy fuck, writer. You suck. And with that, goodbye, MLA. You are one of the worst things I have ever read.